Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another Postgame Live right here on Clemson at the voice of college football. Thank you so much for joining me. I am, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. Jordan Bowman will be joining us momentarily. Obviously got a great show for you guys tonight because the Tigers got it done. Back in the win column for the Tigers. Went up to Blacksburg. And got the job done, scored just enough points to get out of there. We'll get into what we saw on offense, what we saw on defense, and just our overall thoughts on the game here in just a moment. But before we get into tonight's live reaction to the game, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. We are on the road to 6,000 subscribers and getting closer and closer every day. Hope you guys will help us out with that. Again, this is a live video, so go ahead and hit that like button while you're in the live chat. That really helps us out and helps push the video out to other people as well. So if you could just hit that like button for us, that would really help us out. And then last but certainly not least, we have the super chat feature available if you would like to support what me and Jordan do here on Clemson at the voice of college football. Go ahead and hit that super chat feature and we'll be sure to read and respond to your question and or comment attached to that super chat. And with all of that said, and without further ado, let me bring on my co-host, Jordan. What's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Good, man. Much happier to do these shows back in the win column. That's for sure.
It certainly feels a whole lot better doing it on a win than it does last week with that miserable loss that we had.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I both felt like this team would come out and play, with some fire and have a little bit of a response. We didn't quite get that, considering what the first half was.
Right.
But they woke up, played a lot better football, especially the offense. I thought the defense had a really complete performance for the most part. And yeah, you made plays at the key points in the game, and I mean it's better than what you did last week. So I mean, at this point, it's about improving over from that performance,
right,
and trying to build that confidence back again. So we'll see kind of how they parlay that into next week, because you're playing another team with some good athletes, a really good defense, some physical corners. You can't afford to have some of the miscues you had today again next week and expect to win by double digits, but happy with the win regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's always good to get a win. We were pretty spirited with our evaluation of the team this past week, and I don't think either of us feel any differently heading out of this game than any of the stuff that we said, coming out of the Louisville game. I don't feel like we reacted out of emotion out of that game, and we certainly won't do that out of this game either. There's still some problems with this team. Yeah, I think it was pretty clear. Just diving right into it, talking about that first half. Me and you talked about on Wednesday when we were previewing this Virginia Tech game about that spirited effort that you mentioned, right? We thought Clemson would come out a little bit, maybe hair on fire, a little bit more spirited, a little bit pissed off, if you will. Just quoting one Cade Klubnik, right? And in that first half, it was anything but that on offense. We'll just start with the offense first. That first half for the offense was filled with some poor decision-making at the quarterback position by Cade Klubnik. It was filled with crucial penalties at the worst of times. It was filled with drop balls. There were a couple, we went on drives and we just killed our own drives with poor decisions, penalties, drop balls, bad execution. I was just very inconsistent in the first half on offense. It looked a lot like the offense of old of Clemson, where, yes, they would drive the ball. Yes, they could move the ball. But they just couldn't quite put it together and punch it in the end zone. And that really was the first half in a nutshell from my perspective. What did you feel about the offense specifically in that first half and how they performed against this Virginia Tech defense?
Yeah, still disjointed in a lot of ways. Just kind of similar to what you saw last week. It just guys, not making plays, some drops, Cade, making a poor decision on that interception.
Yeah.
Although, he did give Jake a good shot at it, but ideally, you don't want your quarterback, kind of throwing on off his back foot,
Hmm.
just throwing it up, in the opposite direction of where his body's going, because typically that's going to be a disastrous play more often than it's a successful play. Um, you know, I thought you did have some spotty success, running the ball.
Yeah.
Um, I just still kind of inconsistent as far as run blocking. You didn't block up counter all that well at times. Of course, I'll have to go back and watch the tape. And obviously, the injuries that you had early in that game on the offensive line didn't help. Obviously, Tristan Lay had to go out, and then Marcus Tate. And so you had Elijah Thurman, true freshman, and Harris Sewell, true sophomore, both playing on the left side of the line. I thought they held up pretty well, but that's that's kind of contributes to some of the disjointedness, because you just, when you have your starting five out there, they have the chemistry, they understand everything, and there's an adjustment period when you have to insert new guys into the lineup. Receivers weren't handling press very well. That's a thing that's becoming a trend. Teams that have manned up our corners and played really tight coverage, they've had a lot of success. Louisville did, Virginia Tech did, until, of course, when we talk about the second half, when Clemson started to make them pay a little bit. Just a lot of things that weren't going well. I've already mentioned the drops. You had some opportunities, some plays that were there. So I think it was a performance that was kind of reminiscent of last week, but it didn't kill you tonight, because of course your defense showed up. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes it's puzzling just to watch this offense operate at certain times, because the talent's there. Like you mentioned, we have immense talent on this offense, and when Cade Klubnik is clicking and the receivers are creating separation and going up and getting the ball, and you know everything's going well, right? You mentioned the injuries on the offensive line. I think those were pretty big tonight. But credit Harris Sewell, credit Elijah Thurman for going out there and playing a heck of a game, man. To get thrust into that sort of situation is never easy, but you always expect for those guys to be ready, and they were certainly ready tonight. I don't remember seeing those guys really get blown up at all. I didn't notice them look out of place or giving up any sort of big type of plays. Not that they played perfect. Obviously, we had our own struggles in the running game tonight at various points. You kind of outlined that. We broke some bigger running plays that made our rushing game look a lot better than it actually was on a play-to-play basis tonight. But it was a very frustrating first half. And I don't think we can turn the page from the first half without talking about the kicking game once again, and that field goal that we attempted that ultimately ended up in really the only points for Virginia Tech tonight, outside of that garbage touchdown that we'll get into a little bit later in the show. But talking about this kicking game, Jordan, we've got to talk about this, because at this point, and I think you mentioned it to me backstage before we came on the show, is like, this is unacceptable at this point. I think your last 5 field goal attempts or something at that point had resulted in blocks or something crazy like that. But regardless of what the stat is, the consistent breakdown in the coverage, the consistent block field goals, and then today it goes about as bad as it can go, because it not only does it get blocked, they return it for 6 points the other way. And that was the difference in at least the first half of this game. To me, there has to be drastic changes made on the special teams as far as coaching. It just has to at this point. You clearly saw the issues as far back as the Florida State game. It really got exposed. Florida State blocked 2 kicks on you. Well, Virginia did the same thing, and now Virginia Tech did it. This is not going away, and it's clearly not getting any better. So what are your thoughts on these continued struggles for the kicking game for these Clemson Tigers?
Yeah, it's special teams in general. I mean, the apparatus, however we have it organized. I mean, Mike Reed has the special teams coordinator title, but the reality is during the week there is a team of guys that work on special team analysts, led by the director of special teams, Will Gilchrist. I'm sorry, I almost said Mark. I'm thinking of Marcus Gilchrist. Good player. I missed that guy. I think you need to change how your whole setup is there. I mean, if you can have 2 separate defensive line coaches, you can have a coach dedicated to special teams, especially with the rules about on-field coaches. Whatever we're doing is not working, and it's been a trend throughout the Dabo Swinney tenure, but it has been really awful this year. Clemson is 130th in the country in special teams efficiency, according to ESPN. 130th. There are 134 teams in the FBS? That is terrible, man. That is awful. That's got to be worse than the Power 4. That's awful. And it's not that we're not recruiting decent kickers, especially decent kickers. We've had really, Robert Gunn was a really highly touted kicker, and he has not panned out as a field goal kicker. Good kickoff specialist, but Nolan Hooser, the national high school all-time leader in points.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, we do, and I am not a special teams expert, so I can't tell you what the issue is there. But it has been incredible that after how badly those missed field goals hurt you last week, that you allowed that to happen again. What did you do during the week? And, you couple that with a really, really subpar punting game. I thought Aiden Swanson actually had a better day today. I will say that. But for largely on the season, your punting game hasn't given you anything. And you don't have much of a return game. That's how you have the 130th ranked special teams unit in the country, is when you don't do any of those things well. The only thing they do decently well is kickoff coverage. And so I'm really tired of special teams being so unspecial at Clemson when you've been able to be great at everything else at different points through Dabo Swinney's tenure. And really, since BT Potter left, which really, we're talking about 2 seasons, but since BT Potter left, you haven't, that kicking game has been really inconsistent. And since, excuse my language, since Bradley Pinion got drafted back in 2015, I believe, your punting game has been bottom half in the country basically every single season.
Yeah.
There needs to be an overhaul of special teams wise. I didn't want to make a huge rant about it, but what we saw today, within the context of what we saw last week, that's a fireable offense. There's got to be somebody in that room that is held responsible, because I'm tired of this.
Yeah.
That's got to be better, and the standard should be a lot better. And it really, throughout Dabo's tenure, it doesn't appear to be a priority, and that's pretty sucky. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, look, you mentioned that special teams has been pretty much lackluster for all of Dabo Swinney's tenure at Clemson. There's been moments where we've been better at it. There's been moments where it's significantly been better than it is now. Right now is, I think, the worst it's ever been under Dabo Swinney as far as the special teams goes. And you're right, it's unacceptable, and there's got to be changes made. Somebody has to be held accountable. This is not, this is not some anomaly that has happened. It has showed up consistently throughout the season, and clearly, whoever's coaching it up in practice can't get it fixed, because if they could, it would have been fixed by now.
The Florida State game should have been should have been the end of it, especially when you had it happen multiple times in that game.
Yeah, should have been the anomaly where they were like, "Oh, okay, hold up, we gotta get this right." Instead, it's continued several games afterwards, and here we sit, with going into the halftime losing by 7 points. Why? Not because of our defense, not because our defense gave up anything, but because our special teams again allowed pressure right up the middle, block kick, return for 6 points the other way. Absolutely unacceptable. Dabo has got to get the special teams cleaned up. And then in the second half, you see we finally make a field goal for the first time in God knows how long. And we're like high-fiving and super happy on the sidelines. And I get it. But that's just – it's kind of embarrassing, honestly.
Yeah, it was a 34-yard kick.
That we're celebrating a kick that much. That just shows you how bad we are at kicking field goals, that this 34-yard kick was the best thing that happened all day. At least that's what it felt like in the moment. And it's at this point it's unacceptable, and it's got to be cleaned up. And whoever's teaching it up, whoever that off the field analyst guy that is essentially running the special teams, to me, is not getting the job done. And changes need to be made. We cannot continue. We have two of the better kickers coming out of high school on scholarship on our team right now. We got them in back-to-back recruiting classes, and our kicking game is worse than it's ever been. It doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
So
second year in a row. Last year should have been a wake-up call, considering you had to go get a grad student that had a year of eligibility left off his couch to go kick for you. That should have been the thing in your head that that should have been the thing in your head that said, okay, we need to attack this differently than we've done in previous years. But it's no use of belaboring this point, because there's nothing can be done in season about as far as your who you have employed and all that. That's a different thing. We talked about the offense in that first half. Defensively in the first half, played about as well as you could ask. 88 total yards of offense for Virginia Tech. They had no semblance of a running game. You played pretty tight coverage at times. And then sometimes you would play off. I don't know. That sometimes with the things we do defensively in the backfield kind of confuses me, because it's like we don't trust our corners, but they actually play pretty well. Yeah. When you give them when you just let them play, and they could just play tight coverage. I mean, we saw that. But regardless, really, really good response from the defense. Really, really good. I was very pleased with that. Credit to Wes Goodwin, who has taken a lot of heat, a lot of it rightfully so. But I think that his guys played well today. And in that first half, that kept you in the football game where your offense was sputtering and sputtering and sputtering, and your special teams had surrendered points. They kept you in that game and made it so that you could call your regular offense and get some things going in that second half without playing from a massive deficit. So defense definitely won the day for me. And that performance in that first half was the difference, and this game possibly looking a little bit differently in the final score.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Look, the defense came out with that kind of hair on fire that we were talking about the whole team coming out with, right? Going back to Wednesday when we previewed the game, we talked about, this team coming out with a bit of, a chip on their shoulder, a little bit extra. And the defense certainly delivered on that. I think Virginia Tech had 6 drives in the first half, 3 of which ended in punt. 1 ended in a fumble lost. Another one ended in a missed field goal. And then the last one ended in time expiring and going to halftime. So the defense was absolutely stifling in the first half. Love to see the adjustment by Wes Goodwin going to the 3 linebacker set tonight. I think it was much better. You could see the increased production. Sammy Brown went out there and absolutely did his thing tonight. I think it just freed up the defense to play a little bit more freely. I think our linebackers played a lot better tonight in that 3 linebacker set than they have all season, really, in the 2 linebacker set. So I think seeing that added production there was really good. I'm glad to see the change was made. And really, Virginia Tech couldn't get anything going. The idea was very clear heading into the game, going to that 3 linebacker set, that we were not going to allow Virginia Tech to run all over us. We were not going to allow that happen. And they held their ground. They absolutely executed, particularly in that first half, but all game, really. I think Virginia Tech ended up with maybe 40 yards rushing on the entire game, which is pretty amazing.
Yep. Considering what you gave up last week.
Considering, you gave up 200 yards of rushing last game, and you've been gashed pretty much consistently all season on the ground, specifically when they can get around the edge and you're not setting the edge as well. Clemson's shown a propensity all season to allow teams to consistently gash them on the ground. And tonight it was a complete 180. And they were physical. They were tackling. They were taking the proper angles. They were filling the gaps. And it was a breath of fresh air to see our defense actually utilize their talent and go out there and execute for 4 straight quarters.
Yep, absolutely. And credit to the defensive line for a lot of this game. Without DeMonte Capehart, without Peter Woods, those guys stepped up today. Peyton Page, Trey Williams, Stephylan Green, man. Guys, if you guys have been watching this show for a long time, I've been banging the Stephylan Green drum forever. That kid is special. He's going to be really, really good. And so, I was pleased with those guys. They stepped up. And I think you got enough on the back end that you had some guys make some incredible plays that we'll talk about in the second half. It was just a complete performance, and like I said, it kept you in this game when things were absolutely not going well offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to see. Let's go ahead and turn the page to the second half, Jordan. And I think we got to start the second half with this Clemson offense, because as much as they got in their own way with penalties and drop passes and poor decision-making and poor execution in the first half and really killing their own drives, I don't really think Virginia Tech's defense did a ton to stop Clemson in the first half. It was really Clemson just messing it up for themselves. Well, they come out in the second half, and the first 2 drives of the second half, they marched down the field and they put touchdowns on the board. Big methodical drives.
Well, kind of. You worked your way down the field, and then you hit a couple of big plays.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
In the middle part of the field.
Yeah.
Which is great. But
you hit the explosive play. I mean, actually, you didn't even run. Clemson didn't run a play from the red zone until what was it, late in the third quarter, fourth quarter, something like that. So those 2 touchdown drives that you punched in, you didn't run a single play from the red zone. So the explosive play was back. 8 plays, 60 yards for the first touchdown drive. 3 plays, 44 yards for the second touchdown drive. So you got it done, right? The offense finally got out of its own way, started executing, started hitting some big plays, getting those explosives. Cade Klubnik creating outside the pocket, doing some craziness.
That second touchdown, man, that was probably the best play he's ever made. That was incredible.
I have no clue how he was not sacked.
Yeah.
I don't think the defender quite knows, even right now, how he was not sacked.
It was a great play call. I think that was a safety blitz off the edge, on the blind side. Cade never saw that coming. I don't know how he stayed up.
Somehow he eats the hit, spins out of it, and then just drops a dot down the field.
And And great awareness by TJ, man. That was
just
keep
finding
working
that
down the
open
field.
place, settling down, holding his hand up for Cade, being like, "Here I am," and Cade got it there. Got just enough on it, and then TJ just makes a play, right? Makes a guy miss and gets into the end zone because that's what you expect your skill guys to do. So, like to see the offense come out of halftime with much better execution, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what, like, going into halftime, I was like, man, here we go. Here's another day of just our offense. We're going to pile up a whole bunch of yards, and we're going to have a whole bunch of nothing to show for it. And they come out, and the first two drives of the second half are touchdowns, and that's the encouragement that you got to take away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, it wasn't just Garrett Riley scheming guys open. It was just sometimes, and I tweeted this. I said sometimes football just comes down to your guy making a play, and on both sides of the ball, and especially in that second half, you had your guys make plays. Like I mentioned, K. Klubnik escaping that sack, Cole Turner on that first touchdown, just great. He got open. He had a step on his defender, and probably could have been a walk-in touchdown if the ball was a little bit better.
Yeah.
But he went up and got it anyway, like over the defender. I wasn't even upset about the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that he got, because I was like, this team needed that was the spark that this team needed.
And I didn't even think it was that excessive.
There was a very soft call.
He kind of did it, and then
he looked at him. He
quickly moved on. Like he didn't
stand over him and start talking.
But as soon as I saw him do it, I knew the flag was coming. And then you knew Dabo Swinney was going to go talk to him, and he did. But again, to your point, like, I think that was the spark that the team needed. And if we had to take a penalty there, so be it, because he absolutely went up and got that ball. And that's part of what you're alluding to is, like, at the end of the day, your playmakers got to go up and make plays. It's not going to be perfect. This is football. You can draw it up all you want and scheme and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's the guys on the field executing and them going up and making plays, and that's it.
Yep. Antonio, he had a kind of a rough first half, and in some ways he had a couple of opportunities he would have liked to have back, but in that second half, that third down when you were backed up in your own territory, like a 3rd and 9, he just goes up and gets it. Probably right. The announcers were talking about a push. I was like, have you seen what Virginia Tech's corners have been doing all day? Like they've been grabbing our receiver. Like it's been a physical. Like I'm fine with that. Like that's like it's hard enough to play defense as it is, especially defensive back.
Right.
So like I'm not upset when guys get away with a grab as much as. But you got to let the receiver be physical too. And so like I thought that was a big play that extended that drive. Jake Brenningstool stepped up in that second half after, he had a couple of plays he wished he had back. So, your best players, made plays in this game, and that ultimately sparked you into the 24 points you scored in that second half, and only surrendering that late touchdown at the end of the game defensively. So, just a really strong second half, strong response. I don't know what they said in the halftime, but I think this was more about the players than really adjustments that were made from the coaching staff. It was just the guys, kind of put it together and woke up a little bit.
Absolutely. And a lot of your biggest plays tonight was Cade just creating outside the pocket, broken plays, where he got pressure, he got out of it. He extended the play. He kept his eyes downfield, and the receivers ran the scramble drill and helped him out and got open. TJ Moore did it. You mentioned Antonio Williams did it, right? Like all of these guys really helped Cade out.
Brian Wesco could have done it. Man, that drop.
That drop was rough. He did do it. He just didn't complete it with a catch. But he did do it. He did help him out. He was open on the sideline. Cade Klubnik got the ball there. And unfortunately, it wasn't Brian Wesco's best.
Right in the breadbasket.
He had a couple drops. He ran the wrong route one time, and he couldn't find the ball that other time. Yeah, the other time the ball was up in the air. He could have caught it, but he didn't know, and I guess the defender didn't know either because the defender
he could have. It wasn't a bad ball by Cade. Like Bryant's supposed to make that sight adjustment and work his way back. That was I don't know. I don't know if there was like a light in his eye. I don't know what he saw.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but not his best night. But again, look, a lot of it was just, to your point, just our guys creating plays from broken plays, from nothing. And it worked out, and we made enough plays. And, we come out there, first 2 drives, put the ball in the end zone. Third drive, we punt, and then we punch it in the end zone again. And then suddenly it's, 21 unanswered points. It's 21-7. The game kind of feels out of reach at that point because Virginia Tech's offense, again, transitioning to the defensive side of the ball, they really could do nothing with this Clemson defense. They had no answers. They tried to put the backup quarterback in, and he kind of provided a little bit of a spark, but it didn't really last long. Clemson's defense clamped back down. Yes, they had that late touchdown at pretty much the end of the game. And I hate to see that because it was like a minute and a half left.
And you had gotten off the field on that 4th down, but when
you should have gotten off the field on that 4th down. Yeah, but they called a holding, bail out Virginia Tech. They get another set of downs, and they end up punching it in the end zone. Would have liked to see the defense be able to complete that shutout tonight, at least defensively. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do it, but still a really good performance by this defense coming off of a really, really bad performance last week. Yep. So you got to be happy with the response, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep. And you forced 2 turnovers after not forcing any last week.
Yep.
That was big. RJ Mickens, I think he got his first pick of the year. I said, if there was anybody in the secondary that deserved a pick, it was him, because he's honestly been one of your most consistent players on either side of the ball.
Right.
And then, of course, that Ashton Hampton pick was pretty
insane,
pretty outstanding.
I didn't think he caught it at first.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know where the ball was. I thought the receiver, I half expected the receiver to come down with just somehow still be standing and just waltz into the end zone.
Yeah, it's like he had a magnet in his hand, and the ball just flew to his hand. It was crazy.
That was awesome. And that was it. The play after he gave up a big catch, and he was in good coverage to that same receiver.
Right. Gave up a big play. That receiver got him, and then the quarterback goes right back at him. Being like, I'm going to go right back at this freshman because it worked last play, and then suddenly he comes up with this amazing interception. I mean,
Ashton Hampton's not like normal true freshman corners, man. So he's good, man.
Yeah, not quite the guy you want to pick on because you see a freshman out there. He's not that one. And then you mentioned the one from RJ Mickens, man. Like you see him read the quarterback's eyes. He read it the entire way, knew exactly what the quarterback was going to do with the ball. He broke on it, jumped it, and that was it. Clean interception. Good job by him of just paying attention to the quarterback's eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that really stood out to you? I mean, I think we covered a good bit.
No, I mean that's pretty much kind of the gist of the game. Really, it was an absolute lights out performance by the defense. The offense sputtered in the first half due to self-inflicted injury or self-inflicted issues. And then the second half, they kind of broke free a little bit. Still got some big question marks on the offense. This offense does not look right still. They look like a completely different offense coming out of the bye week. And I don't mean that in a good way. They do not look like the offense that built all this momentum heading into the bye week. They still look discombobulated at times. They're not executing at times. Some of the play calls, I think, are head-scratching at times. But at the end of the day, there was some improvement tonight. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of that was Cade just kind of creating on his own. And that doesn't give me a warm and fuzzy going forward. So Still got a lot of questions, I think, to answer on the offensive side of the ball. Still got some improvement to work on there. But overall, I think you got to be happy with the win because clearly it can go bad very quickly like it did last week. So enjoy it while you're winning.
Yep, absolutely. Because like we said, this is Virginia Tech certainly had their opportunities. Like this, could have been a different game.
Absolutely.
So, this we didn't see anything that made us, that eased our concerns about, your next couple of games. Well, two out of your next 3 games at least.
Not at all.
Next week is very losable, and of course, the game at the end of the month is also extremely losable.
Yes.
And so we until we see a complete performance from the offense, really from both sides of the ball, you can't feel too comfortable, even after this win. But you're happy that you get them when you get them.
Absolutely. So, I'd like to see this defense carry this performance on over into Pitt. Obviously,
that would be nice.
They're going to present their own set of challenges, and we'll obviously get into that on Wednesday and break that kind of stuff down. But I like to see the adjustment from the defense. Now we just got to build on that and build consistency, right? And we'll see how it goes. I mean, you're talking about the defense holding Virginia Tech to 188 yards passing and 40 yards rushing. You can't really do much better than that. It was a really good night for them. Offensively, I think Phil Maffa, I mean, he's just kind of your guy, right? Like he goes out there, you know exactly what you're going to get each and every week. He's just going to go out there and give you all he's got. 26 carries for 128 yards. Another really good outing for him. He's about 20 or so yards away from that 1,000-yard mark. All things good Lord willing, I guess he'll cross over that 1,000-yard threshold next week. Hopefully he can stay healthy and do that. Cade Klubnik, 16 of 34, 211 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. DJ Moore obviously had a touchdown catch. Jake Brenningstool, Cole Turner. That's kind of your standouts on offense. Antonio Williams had a great night. He had his struggles at points and times, but when you needed him the most, that guy stepped up and got it done. And then on defense, I think Sammy Brown obviously had himself a game, led the team in tackles, pressured the quarterback. He set the edge. Ashton Hampton came in and played some big-time snaps tonight as well. So just who were your kind of guys that stand out just off the top of your head for the game?
Yeah, you kind of hit on a couple of them. I thought TJ Parker actually played really well. That's one thing that was really frustrating in this game was the lack of holding calls at times. I'm not one to complain about officiating, but especially in that first half, there was a really weird discrepancy there, just in general. But I already mentioned a couple of the guys I thought the interior defensive line was phenomenal. I mentioned the guys Peyton Page, Trey Williams, Stephylon Green were the main 3 guys out there and kind of rotating in and out. You already mentioned, Sammy was phenomenal. Everything else seemed to look a lot cleaner. Guys were playing a lot more free with him out there, so that was good to see. I already mentioned the corners. You mentioned Ashton Hampton, obviously making that big play. R.J. Mickens. Shout out to Jake Brenningstool. He has become the Clemson all-time catches leader for a tight end.
Yes, he has.
He caught his 113th pass with that touchdown that he had. Really nice play.
What a play to break it on too. Not only you catch that, but then you muscle through about 3 or 4 defenders to get that touchdown and complete that score. So,
yep. Absolutely.
He's been a huge part of this offense all year and continues to do so.
So, great career for him. Passes Jordan Leggett. I wasn't sure if that with the way Clemson has used tight ends over the last,
Right. Yeah.
eight or so years, I
Yeah.
was wondering if, we'd ever have a tight end get that much volume over a career again. But Jake did.
I don't know how safe that record's going to be. Christian Bentaker is
I hope so.
Is right behind him. So
I hope so. What who's to say? Because shoot, we don't like to. We really only like to give our tight ends burn when they're like juniors and seniors for whatever reason. Happened with Davis Allen, even though we all knew how good he was. All they could talk about was how good he was, and they didn't really utilize him a ton in the pass game until his last couple of years. And even then, I felt like they could have used him more with how much he was struggling offensively.
Yeah. It's crazy when you think about the tight ends that have come through Clemson and how underutilized they were when they were here. Yeah, it's kind of disappointing when you look back on it.
Yeah, and you've had some guys that probably should have been a lot better than they ended up being. So it's been a mixed bag. But Jake is definitely one of the standouts. Definitely, one of the all-time tight ends that you've had come through here. So, congrats to him, and hope he continues to, step up when the team needs him. Trying to think of anybody else offensively. Credit to the young offensive lineman Elijah Thurman, Harris Sewell stepping in and playing when you needed them to. That was big. Gave you some really, really solid snaps. TJ, good performance from him. Probably should have had a second touchdown on that screen. If he catches that, it was well blocked. Virginia. I think they were caught. I think they were caught in zero.
Yeah, he was going to the house on that screenplay.
Yeah, he had a lot of grass if he held on to that.
Unfortunately, the ball was a little behind him, and he didn't make the catch.
It's the same tunnel screen that you scored on. He scored on against Florida State. Like that was.
Yeah, he was going to score on it again. Unfortunately, it was just not the greatest throw, and he just couldn't come up with the catch. So, but it would have been an even bigger night for him.
Yeah. But I think that does it for me as far as standouts. I have to, and of course, I'll go back and rewatch because it's hard to get a full picture off of one watch especially when you're emotional and getting upset when things aren't going your way and getting excited.
Especially in that first half, man, I was not happy, about what we were seeing and what was going on. But luckily, the good guys got it together enough to get another win. Talk about some stuff going around the ACC, I guess, because it impacts the Clemson Tigers. So Miami obviously falls today to Georgia Tech. I watched that game. That was a crazy game. I thought the cardiac kids or whatever they're calling themselves were going to get it done once again, but they did not. Georgia Tech hangs on and wins that, and obviously that was good for Clemson if we're trying to get into the ACC championship game. That still doesn't get us into the ACC championship game, but it was a good game to watch. It was a fun game to watch. Obviously not if you're a Miami Hurricanes fan. That's not fun to watch, but you had to know, and I think we've said it on previous shows, Jordan, that they were like one of these times it was going to bite them because they literally play every game like this to where they're trailing in the fourth quarter and Cam Ward's got to come, be, Iron Man or Superman or Captain America or whatever you want to call them, and get the heroics and bring Miami all the way back from dead. It seems like they do this every game in the fourth quarter. And they just didn't have the gas to get it done this time. And Georgia Tech holds on to win. So shout out to Georgia Tech. Congrats on that win. That's huge. Probably not good for the conference as a whole, but I don't care about that.
Me neither. And again, we've talked about kind of Clemson's slim ACC championship, appearance hopes. This doesn't hurt by any means. It doesn't hurt. Sure.
It doesn't get us in there by any means, but it doesn't hurt.
Probably, you still would need them to drop another game,
Yep.
or SMU to drop 2,
which is
for this to be a
probably
realistic.
even more unlikely now that they drop
Yeah.
another game because they have lost one, and they know what the deal is now. So
yeah, but it means you're still alive. You gotta keep control what you can control and all those cliches.
absolutely.
Trying to think. Who else? Oh, yeah. Dylan mentions. I think he meant Cal. Cal beat Wake the other day. Their first ACC win, which is crazy.
That's wild. That's wild. You know what's crazy about that? They played Florida State.
Yeah, their Florida State's only ACC win, only win regardless. Like anything.
I shouldn't have done that. Florida State don't need no more stray bullets. My bad. I couldn't help it though.
I know Florida State. I know they're playing Notre Dame right now. How's that looking?
Yeah, it's probably not good.
I would imagine it's not good.
I'd imagine it's not going well.
My ESPN app is being
right now. 7-3 into the first quarter.
Florida State actually has points in the first quarter.
Yeah, they got points. Yeah, they got a field goal. Check them out.
Notre Dame's about to punch it in, though. Looks like.
Of course. Of course.
Let's see. Oh, Alabama's up 7-3 on LSU in the first. Duke beat NC State. That is not good for Clemson.
That's not good for Clemson.
Nope.
Way to go, NC State.
Yep.
Bunch of idiots.
Disappointing as usual.
Yeah. Way to go.
And now you know what?
Out of a Dave Doran coach team.
Yep. Of course. Yep. Georgia. Oh, Boston College beat Syracuse. That doesn't really help or hurt Clemson at all. Because both of them have played. Well, Boston College hasn't played Miami, have they?
See the score of this Cal Wake Forest game? Holy crap!
Yeah, it was that game. I watched some. I watched that game a good bit.
Good Lord, absolutely insane.
And then, of course, yeah, Georgia losing to Ole Miss is probably the big story of the day. Like that was.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And Ole Miss dominated them. Like it was
dominated them. Yeah, Georgia turning the ball over. Offense couldn't do anything. It's crazy, man. College football is kind of crazy this year with, all the teams at the top. There doesn't seem to be a team you can point to right now that you're like, yep, I feel comfortable saying they're going to win it all, right? In years past, you kind of have, one or two of those teams where you're like, I'm pretty sure one of those teams is going to come out on top this year. This year's not like that. I mean, it's crazy because you see a team like Georgia and they go out and they play Alabama, right, and get blown out in the first half and then bring it all the way back to take the lead just to lose it on the very next play, right?
Yep.
But that loss is one thing. And then obviously they struggle against Kentucky, but they get the job done. And then they go into Texas, on the road at Texas, and absolutely blow the doors off Texas, dominated them the entire game. It was like 30-15. And I know that's like only 15 points, but if you watch the game, Georgia absolutely dominated Texas in that game. And then you go into, and then you play Ole Miss and you're like, what in the world is going on? College football is chaos, and it's fun to watch. It's absolutely fun to watch because you truly feel like this is one of the years where really anybody can lose on any given Saturday.
Yep.
It's just one of those years where it's weird. Nobody thought Miami was going to lose to Georgia Tech today, but they did. So it's fun to watch. It's crazy.
Indiana. Dylan mentions Indiana. The Hoosiers in football are undefeated,
which is crazy in and of itself.
Yeah. They beat Michigan today.
11 weeks into the college football season that we'd be saying that.
Don't know how it is one of those. It's just one of those years.
It's one of those years, man. It's like it's nowhere near what was that? Was that 07?
Yeah, to
Yeah, 2007. When all the chaos happened that year, like the
2007. Yeah, it's not that crazy.
it's not
I
there, but
Yeah,
it's like, you know, it's closer to '07 than it is most years, um, which is really cool. Especially if you're a team like Clemson this year, where you ain't up there in the top. So uh, it's fun to watch the chaos from afar.
absolutely.
Christian says he called the Georgia Tech upset all year. I hope you put some money on that, because
Yeah,
you could have. If you didn't, you should have, because you could have won a lot of money on that. Because I certainly didn't see. I didn't. I'm not going to say I didn't see Miami losing a game. I thought Miami would lose a game just because of how they've played all year.
yeah.
The crazy game against Virginia Tech, right? I mean, you could just name them off. Pretty much every game Miami plays, it's like,
Cal.
you know,
Uh, yeah,
the
just
the cardiac Canes are back. Here we go. Fourth quarter, Cam Ward's gonna, he's gonna have some last second drive that's gonna put the Canes on top, or they're gonna overtake them in the fourth quarter and hold on to win, right? But you felt like if they continued to play like that, eventually some team was going to come up and bite them. I did feel that way, but I wouldn't have been able to pick any particular game that it was going to happen, right? So I did think Miami was going to drop something because they've just been playing with fire for far too long this season. But I would have never picked any particular game.
yeah.
Especially Georgia Tech with like Haynes King kind of like in and out, and then Jamal Haynes went out early in the game. So as soon as he went out, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. Miami's gonna
That's what I thought too.
start pulling away, but that wasn't the case.
That freshman they got, Aaron Philo, kid from Georgia, the one that broke all of Trevor Lawrence's high school
Yeah,
passing
yeah,
records.
yeah.
He made
Philo,
some
yeah,
big throws in that game.
yeah. That dude, he's got an arm on him. That's for
Yeah,
sure. He can make some throws.
yep. All right. I think that's going to do it for us. You want to hit the comment section and
Yeah, we'll chop it up with the comment section for a little bit, and then we'll hop up out of here, guys. So get your thoughts, get your questions, whatever you want to talk about in the comment section, real quick, and me and Jordan will chop it up with you guys for a little bit, and then we'll hop up out of here and finish up watching some college football tonight.
so we had a couple of starred comments from Westlake Dad. He said Virginia Tech used the same coverage. Riley calling many of the same places last week. Cade began coming off Riley's calls and second half to put the offense on the shoulders on busted plays and option reads. You could be right about that. I have to go and watch it. Virginia Tech definitely played a lot of the tight, up close man coverage. Dared Clemson to try to, throw the ball, and especially in that first half, they threw us, threw the receivers off. The timing was off, and it gave their defensive line, opportunities to get home. It was, they took some of what Louisville did last week. They had a lot of success in that first half for sure. Wesley Dad says it looked to me that Cade said we are not going to lose this game. The second half has started coming off of Riley's calls. Yeah, like I said, I have to go and watch it. And it's always so hard to tell like what's a built-in check and what's a actual like a player actually changing the play call. Like you don't unless you're in the headset, you don't really know, or the play, you have the playbook. So we'll definitely have to. I'll definitely have a take on that.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that a little bit more on the Wednesday show.
Yeah.
After we go back and watch.
Dylan, you mentioned Colorado. Yeah, they're playing really good football right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're certainly
in the playoff, or they're in the Big 12 race, so they're in the playoff race. That's pretty.
They're certainly
did not expect
that we thought they would be this year. Everybody kind of thought they'd be fighting to become bowl eligible this year, and That's certainly not the case. They're, as you mentioned, in the Big 12 race still. So if you're in your conference race right now, that means you're in the playoff race.
Yep. Let's see. John says, yeah, SMU, the best team in the ACC after a move from a decade in the G5. Let that sink in. Yeah, man. I'm not totally convinced that they are truly the best team in the ACC, but they are definitely one of the best. And, schedule permitting, they've played, really well.
Yeah.
And, that's credit to them. So they're in the driver's seat. They control their own destiny. That's where Clemson thought, Clemson probably should be, but they didn't take care of business last week, and that's the reality. So you're banking on hoping they drop a couple or Miami drops another one because but
yeah, I mean, look, that's what happens when you go out there and lay an egg and you don't go out there with the right intensity and you play like you played last week. That's what happens. You get beat by a team that never should have beat you, and now you don't control your own destiny.
Yep.
You could have got through this game today, and you could have looked back, and it would have been no doubt, no tiebreakers, no nothing. It would have been you and SMU heading to the ACC championship game if you finished out the rest of the season. But again, Clemson did it to themselves.
Tig says, yeah, the jinx is working again. I called Clemson losing out. Yeah, it's
that's right.
We're back in business.
Just keep doing the good work, Tiggs. Just keep doing the good work.
Don't need it these next week, and especially
this Pitt and South Carolina game's coming up. We're gonna need you to channel the old magic.
Yep.
To get through those two unbeaten.
K Club Enthusiast says we beat Virginia Tech better than Miami did. Just put us in the ACC championship. Yeah. Fortunately, we didn't beat Louisville, so they have that in their back pocket, and they did. But yeah, Virginia Tech gave Miami all they could handle. It came down to the very last play. You definitely took control of this game in that second half. So this team has the ability to play well, as we've seen at times this year, and play complete football, but it's been in spurts, and I can never predict this team to have a complete game because it's been few and far between.
No.
And last week was just the wake up call for a lot of people. This team is still not that good. The Trucking Mogul says this team is above average. I mean, I think this is a top 20-ish team. So I mean, they're I think I don't think this is a bad team, but
yeah,
from what we've seen, especially through what are we 9 games in now? Yeah, yes. 9 games. We kind of have a good idea of what this team is. So we'll see.
Yeah, they're I mean, Clemson's a good team, right?
Yeah.
They're nowhere near a great team.
Yeah.
They're a good team,
though. Trucking Mogul says, I think Pitt and South Carolina will beat us. Very possible. I mean, we've talked about it.
That's a much bigger possibility than all of us would care to admit.
Yep. We'll see how they respond and how they build on this performance. But yeah, I mean, next week could very easily be a loss, and the end of the month could very easily be a loss. You lose that rivalry game.
There's going to be some problems.
Yeah, there's going to be some tough conversations.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of angry fans if you lose to South Carolina this year. And like we said before, this offense, even today, really didn't show me anything that answered really any questions that I have about them.
Yep.
There's still a lot of things that they need to improve on. They did enough to win today. That's about all they did.
Yep. Jay says Clemson has a chance to potentially get 2 top 25 wins in the coming weeks. Yeah, I mean, South Carolina won today against Vanderbilt. I think they'll get represented. I thought they should have been in the rankings this week, but I think after the beat with the good Vanderbilt team, pretty comfortably actually, and they took control of that game in the second half. I think they should. I think they should be in the rankings next week, and if they have a couple of they still have some losable games here. They play Missouri, I think, next week. Missouri's hasn't been great. I would certainly pick South Carolina to win that game, but they're not a pushover. So we'll see. But I think Pitt will definitely be ranked next week, and then South Carolina with how they're playing, I think they'll be ranked too when you play them.
Yeah.
So could be a good opportunity. Dylan says we need to go ahead and add James Madison now. I don't know if the ACC is in the market for adding a third Virginia team, but the Virginia school. But I'm not sure Virginia and Virginia Tech would like that very much.
Yeah, I don't think those two would be very interested in that.
Yeah. Man, you'd have three schools in Virginia and 4 schools in North Carolina. Like that won't certainly cause a lot of friction and issues. John says, "Are there any well-paying, decent bowls left, or were they mostly sucked up by the 12 teams?" Yeah, I mean, for the best ACC team that doesn't make the playoff, they get the Pop-Tart Bowl. So that's kind of where what Clemson is. If they can't make the ACC Bowl, that's what they're shooting for. There were actually Pop-Tart Bowl officials at the game today, by the way. So
scouting out the potential teams for the Pop-Tart
Bowl. Scouting out the talent, the prospective talent. So I hope y'all are excited about that.
Yeah, we're gonna be real excited about going to the Pop-Tart Bowl. It's gonna be great. Yep. Can't wait.
Tig says Pitt 56, Clemson 3. I like it.
Sounds about right.
Tiger Tom says SMU should have insisted on a provision within their contract wherein if they win the ACC, they get full rights. That would be
They should have done that.
I don't know if would the ACC have agreed to it? I wonder.
They might have started getting paid a whole lot sooner if they did that. They should have wrote in there, if we win the conference before Miami, we get paid. I'm just kidding. Let me stop.
Can you hear me now? I think my
Yeah, I got you. I can hear you.
Okay, cool. My screen went black. What was I saying? I was saying that like SMU when they were negotiating that whole deal, like they weren't really in a position to make demands because they already weren't, they were already coming into a situation where they were. It would take a lot for the ACC schools to want, because it's another school with more, you got to divide the pie up more. So that was probably the way to, just appease them. And, SMU was the one that wanted in. And of course, Cal and Stanford were in this kind of the same boat, especially Cal and Stanford, because, they didn't have a conference basically. But if they had made that demand, they would be looking pretty good right now. Dylan says Iowa State lost and they were ranked 17, so we are going to move up potentially. Yeah, I mean, I doubt very much. But
maybe a spot or two.
Not losing definitely helps. John says, at least for a full half, this offense is easily disrupted by a competent defense. Not sure if that's fixable in season. Yeah. I think that's very fair. I share those concerns as well. this offense, and even in the second half, it wasn't like a clean, well-oiled machine. I mean, they made plays, but they were not. It was not the just the buzzsaw that they had looked in that 6-game winning streak.
Yeah, like I said, they look like a completely different offense coming out of the bye week.
Yeah,
and it's not good.
The hard take says so. The rest beat Virginia Tech, and that's why Clemson has no chance to get in. So I'm assuming he's talking about Miami, that Miami game.
The controversial call at the end, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the reality.
Yeah, I mean, they've had a couple controversial calls, if you will, go their way this year that ultimately ended up in wins for them. So, I mean, one could argue that, yes.
Yeah. But if you had taken care of business, it wouldn't be a conversation.
It wouldn't matter if Clemson would have just, I don't know, came out ready to play last week.
Yeah. Desperate Man says we still have not beaten a team with a winning record now. Yeah, I guess you're right because Virginia Tech is 500 now, and NC State lost today.
That is true.
Wake lost. Stanford is terrible. Virginia, I think they're 500.
Yeah. Clemson has a terrible resume.
Yeah.
They got a bad resume.
App State, of course, they lost to Coastal the other day.
Which is why they're ranked where they're ranked. Their resume is bad. All
right, let's do a couple more and get on out of here. Alex says, crazy looking at the offensive coaching staff. None of them got coaching experience besides Garrett Riley and Matt Luke. I assume you mean like prior, coaching experience. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. So it's worth considering. But you can only we've been complaining and about this staff and over the past couple of seasons, and you've been retooling and at a certain point it's like, okay, what are the true issues here with why that we can't get this offense to be closer to what it was when Clemson was winning college football playoffs.
Right.
It's at a certain point it's not always the guys underneath the guy, but I don't know. It's hard to assign blame on one particular coach on this staff. I think Riley is probably going to gets the majority of the heat because he is the offensive coordinator. But I don't know. You've got Kyle Richardson, tight ends coach. Matt Luke, C.J. Spiller, and Tyler Grisham. Whatever it is, as a collective, these guys they're not ready to play, and they have not been able to step up when the level of competition steps up. So, the apportionment of blame is. It's hard to say right now because I think you have improved offensively from last year, but it clearly wasn't as much as we thought, and that's frustrating. Let's see.
Tiger Tom says, "Will the Georgia loss do anything for us if we can win the rest of our games?" No,
probably not.
No,
as far as what
we can win out, and our resume will not even be remotely close to get us into that 12-team playoff. Clemson's only hope is to somehow have a scenario where SMU loses enough games or Miami loses enough games for us to get to the ACC championship game. We have to win that, and that is Clemson's only path to the playoff.
Right, because the committee has made it very clear they don't respect you as an at-large team.
Right.
Rightfully so, with how you've looked in your two losses. So,
when you're down at 23, you got no shot.
You got to win your conference.
Yeah.
They're saying win the conference or you're not an option.
Yep.
Barring like absolute chaos. I don't see any way Clemson would sneak their way as an at large. I'll leave it with this one since it's a forward-looking one. Dylan asks, do we have a passing attack versus Pitt? Pitt seems to have a good secondary after watching them manhandle Syracuse. I mean, that's the question. The Pitt is arguably the most physical secondary you will have faced this year, potentially even more so than Georgia, because Georgia had guys that were playing that were a little bit more inexperienced. Pitt is going to play press coverage. They're going to man you up on the outside, and they're going to pressure you a good bit. They're going to blitz. They're going to be really hyper aggressive. That's how Pitt has been under Pat Narduzzi as the head coach. They've consistently, like, I remember there was a 6-7 year stretch where Clemson led the country. It was Clemson, Alabama, and Pitt, like basically each and every year, leading the league in sacks, leading the country in sacks and tackles for loss. So Pitt that's just been the identity of Pat Narduzzi through multiple defensive coordinators, because it's Narduzzi installs that philosophy there. So they're going to man you up on the outside, play a lot of press coverage, and bring the heat. And you're going to have to be able to withstand it. Guys are going to have to get open. You're going to have to hit big plays, because obviously that's the thing you run the risk of when you play that style of defense. So can you create those big plays?
Yeah,
they're good. They're very good. So this is going to be a really tough. There's going to be a tough test for Clemson next week. And based on what I saw against Virginia Tech, I'm very concerned about that. To kind of give you a sneak peek of how I feel about. But there's a sneak peek on how the preview conversation is going to go.
Yeah. This Pitt defense is going to create a lot of challenges for this Clemson offense. But you guys will have to come back on Wednesday at 8 p.m. and check out the All In Show to get our thoughts on Pitt and how they match up with our Tigers. So don't forget, guys, Wednesday, 8 p.m., the All In Show right here on Clemson at the Voice of College Football. And we do these post-game live videos. We post videos throughout the week as well. So stay tuned. Hope you guys will subscribe if you are not already subscribed. For the Virginia Tech fans out there or any other fan base that's in the live chat right now, stick around. Subscribe. We'd love to have you around here if that's something you would be interested in. And one last thing before we get out of here, check out Mark Rogers' new book, Disputed National Champions, where he goes through and breaks down all the decisions in the 90s about how the national championships were crowned and how it shaped and changed college football for the future. So if that's something you're interested in, if you are a college football historian, I encourage you to go check it out. It's $9.99. It'll deliver right to your door, or you can get it on Kindle for 99 cents. So go check it out, Disputed National Champions, written by our one Mark Rogers.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a quick read. So like if you're a person that doesn't have like a super long attention span, like this is a good book. But packed with the tons of information and really informative. So make sure that y'all buy it and support the channel and support this platform and Mark Rogers.
Absolutely. And if you do end up buying it, please go on Amazon and leave a review.
Yes.
And let them know what you thought of the book. Good, bad, or indifferent. Go on there and leave a review and let them know what you think. And that would be greatly appreciated. And last thing we'll talk about before we get out of here tonight is the Voice of College Football X page. Lots of picks on there, lots of analysis, lots of just talk about college football, every single team pretty much in the Power Four, and all of that kind of stuff. So go check out the Voice of College Football Network official X page. Give it a follow, and you guys will enjoy some of the content that's posted over there. I hope you guys will go over there and follow. All right, guys, with all of that said, that's going to do us for tonight. We are approaching the hour 20-minute mark. We got 35 people in the live chat right now. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hit that like button on the way out if you have not already. And me and Jordan will see you this Wednesday, 8 p.m. for the All In Show, where we will be breaking down the Clemson Pitt matchup and any other major college football news that happens between now and then. We look forward to seeing you guys there. And until then, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.